Okay, so I think this is like intro take maybe 13. I don't know why, but intros for these videos are just so difficult to get past. But basically today I wanted to talk a little bit about motivation. Now, motivation is one of those things that I have struggled with on and off quite a lot throughout my whole life. Probably more so than just about anything else. And one thing that motivation has specifically had quite a large impact on is studying Japanese. And this past year has been no different. My lack of motivation has sprung up more often than not quite a lot throughout the past year. In saying that though, studying Japanese for the past year has actually probably been my most productive year yet. And it kind of made me realize just how much you can't rely on motivation. Now, as I said, I've had my own fair share of bad experiences with motivation where it just completely fades and causes me to kind of put off doing just about everything, no matter how much I don't want to. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had these moments when studying Japanese or any language for that matter, because there's so many things that can impact your life and cause motivation to fade. It could be something as simple as seeing how well other people are doing and how well they're progressing. And maybe it just kind of makes you feel like you're not smart enough to sort of keep up or actually reach fluency. Or maybe you just lost that 1, 2, or 300 day streak on that website or app you've been using to study a language, and you kind of just feel a little bit defeated and upset with yourself, and it's kind of making it a little bit hard to pick it back up again. Or maybe you got sick or took a trip and had to take some time off studying, and it's kind of just made it a little bit hard to get back into the swing of things. I know for me personally, I've struggled a lot with all of these situations in the past, which has affected many aspects of my life, not just studying Japanese. And of course, I feel like everyone would probably experience something similar to this in varying degrees. But basically what I'm trying to say is you can't really trust or rely on motivation alone. Don't get me wrong, I think motivation is really great in helping you push towards those goals that you have, but it can also be a bit of a detriment to your goals as well when it fades. And this is true for so many different things in life, such as work, trying to get fit, or sticking to a diet, and so language learning really isn't any different. This past almost year of studying Japanese has really taught me the importance of not overly relying on motivation, and to be honest, it's not even something I really realized I'd stopped doing. And I've had plenty of days where my mental health has made me feel like I don't even want to get out of bed, when it just feels like I've got so many things that I have to do that I kind of end up doing nothing and just sitting there dwelling on all the time I'm wasting. But even on those days, I still manage to study Japanese for at least an hour a day. And that's huge for me because it has allowed me to make this past almost year studying Japanese the most productive one I've ever had. I was doing a little bit of reflecting on this past almost year of studying Japanese, and it kind of made me realize that there was kind of 3 main sort of values or concepts that had really helped me stay on track when it comes to studying Japanese. And that's actually why I decided to make this video, because I thought that, maybe in making this, somebody might find some value in this and be able to take something positive away from this video. So the first sort of value or concept or what have you that I kind of realized was disillusionment. And more than that is being okay with it. So many people, myself included, sort of go into learning a second language for the first time, especially one as hard as Japanese, thinking that it's only going to take X amount of time to become conversational or fluent, only to get about 6 months down the track and realize, I'm nowhere near my goal. And that can be really disheartening to sort of get hit with that realization so far into your studies. And I definitely feel like this is made worse by the sheer number of people that there are out there that are making videos like, I passed my N2 or N1 JLPT test in 6 months or a year, and here's how you can too. And just for those of you who don't know, the JLPT is the Japanese language proficiency test. Now, yes, there definitely are some people that are just incredibly gifted at learning languages and they do pick it up super quickly. But it's really important to remember that everybody learns at different speeds with all different types of things in life. So there might be things that you pick up really quick, whereas other people don't, and language learning is definitely one of those things. The most important thing to know about these kind of videos is that the majority of the people making these videos are full of shit. They're either lying about their sort of level of proficiency when it comes to speaking the language, or the amount of time that it actually took them to get there, completely neglecting the past 10 years of studying that they did, and the 6 months to a year that they're actually referring to is more the prep time that they actually had for the test itself. I actually remember watching a video not that long ago of somebody that had posted something along those lines where they'd achieved N1 in 6 months. Now, the title was definitely a clickbait. The actual video did explain that, they'd studied Japanese for many years, but it's things like that that cause this illusion that Japanese only takes so long to learn, because a lot of people make the same sort of videos, but they neglect to mention how long they've actually been studying for. And so I think it's really important to sort of embrace disillusionment and know that it's not going to be that quick, and you need to be okay with that. So take me for example. I studied Japanese for about a year and a half, many years ago. I quit and only started back up almost a year ago now. When I started back up, I had pretty much forgotten just about everything. I remembered a few basic sort of words and introductions and hiragana and a little bit of katakana. That's about it. Everything else had completely just gone from my memory. But since starting back up, I can comfortably say that I am around an N4 level, which is kind of like the equivalent of an elementary school student. But definitely don't feel like my speaking conversational ability is anywhere near there just yet. And do I wish that I was further along than I currently am, having been studying for almost a year now? Of course. But I also know that it takes me time to learn new words, especially kanji. So for instance, learning kanji and new words through Anki, when reviewing roughly sort of 70 to 80 flashcards every day, takes me anywhere from 40 to 45 minutes, sometimes 50. Though I have sort of reached a point where it is starting to get a little bit quicker because I'm starting to realize patterns when it comes to the kanji and new words, because I've seen them before in older words, so it kind of is reinforcing my ability to pick up these new words because I recognize the kanji. So definitely, that's just a separate tip. Learning kanji is great, especially if you're learning Japanese, but that's probably something for another video. But the point is, it takes me time to learn new words because my brain is not fully wired for language learning, because it is still kind of a new foreign concept for me. Whereas something that I've been doing my whole life and is a hobby for me is video games. So I can play through a game like Elden Ring, for instance, that has hundreds of items and armor and quest lines, and I can play through it once and then not play it for a number of years, go back and play it and just instantly remember where everything is, because that's just how my brain is wired. So the point is, everybody is different, and it'll take you a different amount of time to learn something than it will somebody else, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna be impossible. But boy, do I wish I could change the way my brain works for video games to work like that for language learning instead. I would become fluent in no time. Unfortunately, that's just not how life works. Unfortunately, it's all too easy to see comments like these that kind of just make you feel crap about how long it takes you to learn Japanese. But it's really important to remember, as I said before, a lot of these people are just showing off very unrealistic goals and are most likely just full of shit. So don't look at these and feel bad about your progression when it comes to learning a language. Just keep pushing forward, and don't let it create this illusion in your mind that it should only be taking you so long to learn the language. This brings me to my next value, which is dedication. Which, if it isn't obvious by now, language learning is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And yes, that does sound incredibly cliche to say out loud, but it doesn't make it any less true. So many people will study for upwards of 10 years when it comes to learning Japanese, and still not fully consider themselves to be fluent. And yeah, it may not take you that long to reach your goals when it comes to learning a language, because your goals might actually be different and you might just want sort of basic conversational level of a language. But the important thing to remember is it is going to take time. So you do have to make sure that you're dedicated to doing it. One important tip that I can give when it comes to helping find something that will dedicate you to reaching those goals is to find your reason why. If you don't have a good reason for learning a language, it's going to be really hard to hold on to that dedication, because it can be really hard to give up if you lose sight of what the reason for it all is. And also, when I say a good reason, I don't mean it has to be like a great reason in general, just something that's good enough for you to help push you towards your goals. Because at the end of the day, your opinion is the only one that should really matter to you. And that reason may change and evolve over time and become something completely different, and that's fine, as long as it keeps you pushing yourself forward. For me, for instance, when I first started learning Japanese, it was pretty much just to prepare for my first trip to Japan. Then I kind of started to push myself a little bit more when I wanted to start trying to understand Japanese media. But as I slowly stopped watching Japanese content, I sort of started to lose that drive to keep going, and motivation was also a big factor, so I stopped. My new reason for learning Japanese is family, because my wife is Japanese and none of her family really speaks any English at all. And so it's really important for me now more than ever to learn Japanese, because I want to be able to hold more meaningful conversations with them. The final value that I wanted to talk about is the one that I feel is the most important, and that's discipline. Because if your motivation fades, discipline is really the only thing that you've got left to keep you on track. Studying, even on those days where you just don't feel like it. In many ways, studying is kind of like a job. There's going to be plenty of those days where you just don't feel like going in, but if you've got enough discipline, you're going to anyway. Unfortunately, for language learning, this is definitely easier said than done. Because unlike work, you're not getting paid for it. So there's much less incentive to keep sticking to it day after day, which basically means that the only real incentive you get to keep learning Japanese every day is the incentive that you create for yourself, and also whatever that reason why is that you have to keep going. I do have a few tips for this though, ones that really helped for me a lot throughout this past year. And there's also one new one that I recently just thought up that I've only just started doing now. So the first little tip that I've got is to track your progress. This is something that I've found that's helped me a lot when it comes to both my dedication to studying as well as discipline. Being able to just see the growth that you have with your target language, even on those days where you just didn't feel like studying, is actually really helpful to keep pushing yourself forward. It's just a really good reminder of how much you're improving day by day. And I just think that this is really important because, especially with language learning, it can be very easy to feel like you're stuck in one place, even when you're not. The next tip is to set aside time in your day. So this should just be at least a minimal amount of time for you to be able to at least accomplish one realistic daily task for yourself in your target language. So this will definitely work best if you can do it around the same time every single day, and the same task even. It can be absolutely anything you like it to be, as long as it's something that you can realistically do every single day and is productive, because you want it to be able to actually help you move forwards in your target language. Even if it's just 45 minutes of doing your Anki reviews every single day at a specific time, that's still 45 minutes that you're putting towards valuable study towards your language goals. And doing that every day around the same time is eventually going to create a routine for you that's going to be much easier to stick to and improve upon. Now the next tip is the one that I mentioned that I've only just recently started doing myself. And this tip actually relates to study streaks specifically. I'm sure if you've done any amount of language learning through websites or apps, you're well aware of what study streaks are, which is just like a daily counter for how often you've been studying consecutively. And they can be a really great motivator to keep you coming back day after day and making sure you stick to those goals. But at the same time, they can kind of be a bit of a double-edged sword. So what I mean by that is when you've got like a 100, 200, or even 300 plus day streak and you lose it, it can be really demotivating and can kind of make you want to stop for a bit. Or on the other hand, even if your streak doesn't break, it could be that maybe what you're studying just doesn't really have that much value, but you're sticking with it because you're building that streak counter even when you're not really getting that much value out of it anymore. You're kind of just going through the motions for the streak, basically. So that brings me to the last tip, which is to take a day off, break the streak. Once it's broken, rather than sort of going for another super long streak again, break it up into smaller streaks. It's very well documented that setting smaller goals is a great way to give you that feeling of success. So instead, set goals of maybe 30 or 90-day streaks, and then just put a really good amount of effort into every day of the whole streak. And once you've completed your streak, take a day off and just reward yourself. Maybe go out or buy yourself something, whatever it may be. Doing it this way and intentionally letting your streak break each time will make it less likely that you'll end up getting discouraged when it breaks at a really high number, and it will also stop you from sticking to something that may no longer be working for you. And rewarding yourself after each completion of your set sort of goal streak is a great way to sort of build that incentive to keep moving forward. And with that, I have just one more little tip as well, and that is just to be true to yourself. Because with studying, you're pretty much only going to get out what you put in. So just do your best to put in a really good amount of effort into each day of your streak, and I'm sure that you'll achieve your goal. I think it would be really great to share language learning tips as well. So if there's anything that's really helped you out a lot, leave it in the comments. Maybe you'll end up helping somebody else achieve their goals. Also, if you've already got your reason why, I would be interested to hear what it is that keeps you going. Now, this video actually took me a lot longer to plan out than I thought it would, because once I sat down and started, I just couldn't stop. I do really hope that you got at least something useful out of this video, and I hope you all have great success in whatever your goals may be.